this has the potential to be the largest double-edged sword seen in the entire series, at least for me, because I very, very much did not want Megicula to end up dying. There are some things that people pointed out, but because Megicula is only one third of the way manifested, maybe destroying her heart doesn't fully kill her because a majority of her is still in the underworld. It could just weaken her, and then there'll be a way that she has to recover, maybe some form of a, whatever devil scheme she has set up that could cause her to regenerate. I don't really know. This because I would assume that if she is still alive somehow after losing like a chunk of her heart, it's not going to be the same as like her just general curse regeneration, I would assume. But we'll see on that matter and like what Tabata has for plans in regards to that whole like piece of the story. But what I'm saying is like one of the reasons it would be a double-edged sword is because like that would be a negative thing. If anything happened, that Megicula would just be dead because I've mentioned Megicula I've had a lot of interest in. I think she's been really cool so far, especially as an antagonist. We haven't had like a long-going antagonist in Black Clover really for a bit, because like the Dark Triad, we thought they were going to be like that, but it doesn't seem that was going to be the case. Megicula has been talked about since like the prelude to the Spade arc even began, so it's safe to assume that if she is going to live, then she's going to keep being a longer going villain. But I mean, she's been around for so long in terms of the story that it'd be an unfortunate she's gone, because really when you think about it, she came in I think it was the 220s, so she's been around for what, like almost a fourth of the series, about like a little over a fourth of the series she's been within Black Clover. So I would hope that her character ends up actually like holding a position and staying where she's at. Otherwise, it'll really bum me out if she's gone. But when I mentioned that, the good side of it, if you're a Nozel fan, Nozel had excellent character, like just general information in this chapter, just finding out stuff about who he is, finding out stuff like more intricate details to his backstory, and it gives a lot of reference to like things that he was saying, and as well as like how his character behaved. I've seen some people talk about, okay, which was better between his backstory and Nox. Personally, I think that Nozel's was better in terms of a longer ranged story, because like Nox I think is better in a confined story. Like for a short story, his just had more in such a short span of time that you were able to understand, whereas like Nozel's was designed that you had to know the full scope, and on top of that, it gives way more context to how he behaved prior to prior to the reveal here. So if you look at Nox's character, it's his for the most part you can sort of see pretty well just from the chapters around when we found out about his backstory. Whereas like Nozel's extends obviously like way to the beginning of the story since he was introduced. And there's one aspect in Nozel that I've always noticed, I know a lot of people notice it as well, is he's negative towards people who doesn't seem like they can't pull their own weight. Like they're just kind of like weighing everybody down, and once they've displayed that they can hold their own and they can pull their own weight and do their own things, while being beneficial to the Clover Kingdom and whatnot, he becomes nicer to him. He did that with pretty much anybody that he's come across. And we even saw back when Fuego Leon got hurt, and there was the whole part where he was upset that he wasn't like, they're like, oh well, he got hurt, can't believe him. Like, no, Nibra and Solid were just kind of ragging on him, but Nozel was blaming himself. He was just like, this is another time where I wasn't there to do anything and somebody close to me got hurt. Because Nozel and Fuego are obviously, like, they're still rivals. They're not like besties, but they still have at least enough of a relationship that it bothered him that he wasn't there to defend him. Plus, I mean, they're at the end of the day, they're not enemies. They're in the same kingdom. They both have the same goals. So Nozel's whole bit about like how he wasn't able to tell anybody about what happened with Vonik and Megicula, he was cursed, so he couldn't even speak about it. And if he tried to talk, like, he couldn't say Megicula's name, otherwise he'd die, and he couldn't talk about it at all, otherwise it was going to spread to other people like a disease, and it was just going to keep infecting those around him. So he was sacrificing the truth for the good of not only himself but others around him. He mentions how he wanted for his siblings to end up getting stronger to where they could eventually like do something about this, and Nebra and Solid, though they were getting stronger, you know, it's like it wouldn't really matter like in front of somebody like, you know, someone like even Vonica at the time. They aren't powerful enough to really contend with that. Whereas like with Noelle, it wasn't that she wasn't strong enough. It's like, you know, we're all aware, obviously, as readers, that at the beginning of the series, Noelle's problem was control. It wasn't that she was weak, is that she had very improper control over her magic, and she wasn't able to utilize it in the way that she wanted to, in the best way that she could for fighting. And now that she's got that, she's way more capable, she's way stronger. And I'm curious if Tabata's gonna do anything now with Solid and Nebra. Like, they don't have to be as powerful as Nozel and Noelle, but I'm wondering if he could logically, like, kind of, like, push them along further up. Not like that they could somehow, like, compete with like, Dark Triad people, but if they were able to keep up on the battlefield. Like, imagine if they were here, they wouldn't be able to do anything really on their own, but because they're around all these other characters, they're just beneficial in their own way, as well as they're able to help anybody else that, you know, on the field that they're able to for what they can. So, like, if we can get something like that out of them, I'd be pretty hyped. But outside of that, I don't really see what almost a machine what Tabata has plans for with Nebra and Solid. Otherwise, I don't really see like him doing anything with them whatsoever. But when Nozel is like thinking back through all this, and he's blaming himself for obviously like surviving what happened to his mom. He's blaming himself for like the cruelty that's happened to his sister. It's just a big stacking of guilt that he's like weighing himself down with. But I really like that it was, in a way, it was almost kind of like, you know, you have like characters that have like you know, like crazy anime weight training, all this stuff just though further pulled him down. Like, he's even having stuff like the braid on his face is a reference to the cross from his mother's grave. Like, everything that he has that is making it harder on himself and dragging him further and further and further down, it's also making it harder for him to continue, but because he's continuing, it's just making him stronger in the process. And now he's like, you know, everything that I've done up until now has been for this point in time, and he ends up just unleashing everything on Megicula. And we know that non-arcane can damage the devils, but they can't kill them. You can't kill them unless you're not arcane. So it doesn't look like he is arcane. That's just something that, at least from the chapter, I seem to believe. There was the part when she was like saying how her blood is fizzing, and she's like saying, oh, steel has gotten inside. I'm guessing she's saying that like inside of her blood, inside her body, mercury has gotten in, which pretty much should confirm that Nozel's mercury does poison. Like, you know, that's been a weird topic thing since that really, like, the fact that he uses mercury and not steel or just metal, because we haven't seen him poison anybody, but it's like been in databook stuff, and logically it being mercury, it would have that capability in that aspect to do it. But then Noelle comes in, like, he's just giving her a big opening. Obviously she can't, like, he can't destroy the heart, but she can. He's giving her an opening too. They're just working together, having a really good moment between the two of them. And that's when Noelle cuts the heart of Megicula in 4. Again, I'm really hoping Megicula's not done. Because even the way she, you know, quote unquote, died in this chapter, it doesn't seem as much as like, oh, well, I'm dead. It was more of like she just took an L. Because he's like saying, well, like, oh, I misjudged like the true strength of humans. And it's like, well, you know, I took an interest in what could be the power of human emotion. So that to me at least is like putting Megicula more on a potential kind of villain growth thing, that she's observing this and taking note of it, and maybe she's not gonna just be dead. Again, I really hope she's not. I like Megicula. She's been really cool. We have gotten, like, we got Zagrid. Zagrid is really sick, but he wasn't designed through his position in the story to be a long-running antagonist. And the twins are legitimately just measuring sticks. They were literally just to show how powerful these Supreme Devils are, and the strength that Asta is, as well as, like, we're still at a spot where characters can get caught up on Asta if they're not, like, if they're not careful. He can still anti-magic his way to victory if they're not going to take him seriously, and they're still going to be idiots. That's just kind of how, like, the twins really resulted out to be. Like, we saw that Fuse Lilith, she was faster than Asta. If she just realized, like, paid enough attention, saw the time beforehand, and just got away, she would have won. But, you know, it's not something we got out of them. They weren't designed to be, like, more intelligent, tactical, and scheming devils. They were more of just kind of, like, evil bad guy devils. So with Megicula being clearly way more intelligent, way more, way more observing of her environment, her opponents. I found her just generally a lot more intriguing, so I'm hoping her character isn't gone. It's really going to depend on Tabata at this point on what exactly he plans to do with where her character goes and with the fact of, like, if she's dead or not. Like, the fact that people brought up, oh, well, because she's only 1/3 manifested, maybe it's not like her full heart and she'll live on, she'll just be kind of injured. I would very much like that. I'm hoping that's the case. I'd rather be wrong about her being dead than her being right about her being dead. You know, I'd much rather be wrong and her character comes back, because I do like her and I want to see more of Megicula in action and, like, what she plans to do with a return. But anyway, other than that, though, it was a really solid chapter. Like I said, for the most part, it was a Nozel flashback, and I do think it gave a really good set of information. Nozel, it's definitely one of the best flashbacks we've had in the series, just because it's one of those ones we didn't need the full story like Noct, because we knew multiple variables around it that already happened in the story, like the way that Nozel and his siblings treated Noelle, the way that Noelle reacted from it, the way that Noelle had kind of a lot of emotional trauma and baggage from it. Obviously, what happened with Aesir from the flashback prior, as well as flashbacks that happened at other points in the story, as well as, like, for instance, when Nozel was talking to Noelle during the elf arc and he apologized and stuff like that, when you can kind of see, like, bits of more of him being kind and less being a bad guy. But also, like I said, the stuff with him being more forgiving and polite to people that have proven they can pull their own weight. He just has this mental, again, like, just weight that will drag him and anyone he sees that is just going to be a burden down. And I don't think that for him it's more of like, oh, this guy's useless, I don't want him on the team. I think it's more probably that he sees himself in them, and he just sees someone that will only get others killed as well as themselves and just be a hindrance out there. But not in a way that's really negative towards the people around him. Something that's always going to be reflecting back to himself, and always something that he's going to compare to himself. But anyway, really good chapter, really solid. I really am hoping that we see some results of Megicula in the next chapter. Confirmation of whether or not Megicula is fully dead, or if she's just back with the underworld getting ready to recover. Who knows? Anyway, other than that, though, comment below. Thumbs up the video, friend, like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But in that, I appreciate everybody who's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.